What's going on, guys? My name is Triforce Addiction, and I have some pretty shitty news to share with you guys. And this actually has to do with an extra change to the balancing of this game that happened probably like just a day before this update came out. We were kind of notified of it. And right now, online at least, a lot of people are not taking this news very well. And this actually has to do with the wildcard system. So the wildcard system hasn't more or less been changed throughout the entire time it's been out. If anything, not a lot of people really had any issues with wildcards in the first place. I think people were pretty neutral about it. I mean, I never really heard anyone say to nerf Overkill or to nerf the red perk greed. Even the one with like the extra score streak or tactical shift and just all those other side uh wildcards that are not used too often don't really have any complaints towards them, at least from what I've seen. So it came to me as a surprise that they actually adjusted them. And look, I'm not against adjusting wildcards at all, but at the same time, it depends on what the adjustment actually has. Like if you wisely balance wildcards out, I mean, that's cool. There's usually probably a reason for it. But this time around, there wasn't. And even myself, I'm a little upset about how they dealt with this entire situation. So first off, I do want to get on with the first change, which is the red perk read. So for the red perk read change, in short, they basically have the effects for the extra perks. So this doesn't affect the original red perk that you have. So let's say the first perk that you equip is, let's say, Skulker, and it gives you like 12% strafing speed. That's not going to get reduced unless it's in the extra perk slot. Go down from 12% to 6%, but you won't get that reduction if that's your main red perk. And this applies to all the red perks across the board. So if you have any of those red perks in the extra slot, fast recovery is going to go down to 20%. Uh, Blackjack is going to go down to 20%. Skulker is going to go down to 6%. And Lightweight's going to go down by 3%. And as for the other perks, such as Martyrdom and everything else, I'm not really entirely sure. I did hear online with Martyrdom, if you do have it as an extra red perk, the delay is a little bit longer. By how much, I'm not really that sure. Maybe it's 2 seconds, maybe it's like a second and a half or a second and an eighth or whatever. I don't know. So you might actually think that's a good thing, right? But in all reality, it actually isn't. Why I think the red perk change just in general is pretty fucking stupid. Again, for starters, no one really complained about it. I don't really think a lot of people thought the red perk read was incredibly imbalanced or like, it was incredibly overpowered. Again, I don't hear people complaining about it. I think it was fine where it was. But there were issues with Martyrdom where basically everyone was using it and you had no choice but to use Flak Jacket. So yes, while Red Perk Read gives you 2 red perks, you still don't really have much of an option. Before the Martyrdom buff, I always used Skulker and Lightweight. That was like the main format I had for Red Perk Read. And then Martyrdom got buffed to where it explodes like with only 1 second, and now I have to use Flak Jacket on every single one of my red perk classes. That one buff to a single perk was able to narrow down our choices on what we can actually use in order to stay alive a little longer. But let me tell you why an extra delay wouldn't matter. Let's move on to the next change. So now we move on to the Bomber. Range radius of every lethal effect got slightly increased, temporarily increases your carrying capacity and replenishes your lethal equipment when it gets a kill. So how does this tie to Martyrdom? So basically, since you're using this wild card, obviously you cannot use the red perk read. So obviously, Martyrdom is going to be the main red perk that you're using. So now, because of this buff, it's going to have a bigger explosion radius. And not only that, I'm pretty sure you could couple this with Demo Expert and it's going to be extremely overpowered. Almost to the point where even if you put Flak Jacket as your main red perk, you have that full 40% protection, I don't think it's actually enough to stop this. But not only that, I mean, whenever your lethal equipment gets a kill, you just immediately get another piece of lethal equipment. I feel like that's bullshit. This change is going to indirectly cause a lot of spamming to happen, especially in hardpoint matches, to the point where I don't even think it's going to be enough anymore if you have a trophy system. And this is going to be an even bigger problem with C4s because since it is an explosive and it's going to get a lot more of a radius buff, and if you have Demo Expert, you're just going to be able to endlessly throw that at the enemy. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? So now we move on to Overkill, another really dumbass retarded change. Now, it increases weapon swap speed. Swapping weapons after a kill grants a brief movement speed boost. This effect has a short cooldown between activations. So basically, in layman's term, you're going to be able to fast switch with whatever weapon you want, and you don't have to use a melee anymore. By the way, this effect could also be amplified when you use amped and fast switch. And let me give you a visual aid just so you guys know what I'm talking about. Just in case you guys want to see a little bit of it in action, here's some gameplay, and trust me, it's just beyond fucking stupid. I'm just completely astounded by the stupid shit that these devs are pulling when it comes to balance. I'm honestly starting to believe that these guys are just not mentally fit to weapon balance at all in this game. I think whoever is doing this right now just needs to be fucking fired and never work in game development ever again in their fucking entire lifetime. And you know what, devs? I want you guys to look back at this fucking video if you ever do look at my channel. And I don't care if you sponsor me or not. Someone has to fucking say it. So, Killstreak support. The activation required for additional score streaks have been slightly reduced. More score streaks are available when persistence is equipped with Stealth Chopper, Napalm, and Chopper Gunner. So yeah, why not just help the noobs even further? It's not like Martyrdom was doing enough, right? And look, I've seen my fair share of incompetent changes in this game, but I am actually surprised by how stupid they actually are with this change that they made with the wildcard system. I thought they couldn't stoop any lower when it came to stupidity, but it really has me wondering whether or not these guys are mentally capable of making the right balanced decisions. Because if I'm being real with you, I don't think they are. I think these guys have some sort of fucking mental sickness that they cannot fucking get this shit right. I don't know if they're a DEI hire or some bullshit, but whoever's making this needs to be barred from game development completely and never fucking work in game development in their entire lives again, like I said earlier. And look, I wouldn't have minded these changes, as stupid as they are, if there was a restrictions list in ranked. If you weren't allowed to use wildcards in ranked or something like that, fine, whatever. You could use them in basic multiplayer. That's fine. But I know that this is going to spill into ranked and it's just going to be a complete mess. And for the first time ever, I don't think I've ever felt lost. Usually when things get buffed or, when something stupid happens in balancing, I usually find a way to deal with it, to compensate for it. This is the very first time where I feel like I don't know what to do in this situation. Look, the weapon buffs were cool. I don't think people were really caring too much about that. But something as vital as wild cards and the dramatic way that they changed it, I just don't know how I'm gonna adapt to this. I mean, it's not gonna stop me from playing the game, obviously, but I don't know what to do from here. Because now we got to deal with red perks being reduced, having like the additional perks reduced, and now if you're using flak jacket as like an extra, like just as protection from explosives from martyrdom, there's nothing you could really do in that situation because most people, as I predict, are going to use Martyrdom with the Bomber perk and with Demo Expert. So there's really no way to counter it properly. I would be amazed if you barely survive the explosion. But even then, I can't guarantee it. And not only that, fast switching with snipers is going to be a complete pain to fucking deal with because now they could just easily do it. They could easily just double snipe without any issues. And I could only imagine how things are going to be with shotguns. With the Killstreak support, I don't really know how many people actually use that. Maybe it's not a big deal, maybe it is. But it just, to me, it looks like these devs are going out of their way to make sure that the shittiest players are always going to win, no matter how dog shit they are. Right now, the update's only been out for maybe a day and a half, depending on where you are. And I don't think, like right now, we don't feel the full weight of it because people are still updating the game. But give it like maybe a week or so, maybe even less than a week. People are going to be complaining about this nonstop. If people weren't leaving the game before because of the USS 9, this change is definitely going to make a lot of people leave if they don't fix this as soon as possible. And really, all of this could have just been avoided if you just fucking nerfed Martyrdom. But now we have to deal with Bomber, and now we have to worry about freaking C4 users and just all these fucking explosive spammers that could just easily get their explosives back the moment they kill someone with that said explosive, which is pretty easy, especially if it's a fucking C4 with bomber. Like, what are we even doing here, guys? Like, what the fuck is going on with this game right now? Well, you know what? You know what? I'll just stay quiet about this, and I'll just let things go with the flow. Let's see what happens, because I know for a fact a lot of people are going to be complaining about this immediately once the season begins. I'm actually like in real time right now. I was messaging my friend Bebbles on Twitter, and he's telling me that the people on the CN server are actually already starting to fucking complain. So yeah, it's already happening. And keep in mind, they've had the update for a day now. It's been a day for them. Like, imagine how fast it's going to affect us when everyone gets the update and they're just constantly playing the game. They're going to get burnt out of it immediately. But you know what? Again, let's just wait and see what happens. I want the devs to feel the full weight of their stupidity and the way that it backfires. But anyways, that's all I have to say in this situation. I know I don't really have to say what you guys think in the comments. I know what you guys are going to say. It's going to be all negative. I know. And not negative as in like criticizing me, but just negative towards like this change. Like, it's just, there's no way around it. This is the dumbest change I think they've ever done in terms of balancing. But anyways, I'll see you guys next time.